Hello.
Welcome, welcome. How we doing?
Yo, yo, what's going on, River?
Chilling, chilling. River, how are you, River?
Good. Doing good.
Well, we had an amazing day, huh, today.
Good.
I don't know.
We had a sick one.
I was outside in the chat in premium. I was just listening. They're taking trades. I'm like, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
And I waited. Boom. Pump, baby.
Yeah, they ripped it. I guess when the president comes out and says buy stocks, they're probably gonna buy some stocks.
Or bro, remember when they pumped that when he said it's a great time to buy?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, people
it's the
hopped
same
on it.
thing.
Yeah, people hopped on it this time.
Nah, but the other one was bigger though. The last one, the first one he did, that was a
Dude,
big pop.
the
Like
pause
in
day, this one was the mind blower, dude. The day they paused tariffs, that one was like, and it was the day
yeah,
before that. Or yeah, it was like shortly before that, maybe even the same day. It said good day to buy. It's a wild one. Market getting up to a tricky spot, 570. Ended up
right?
in that wall. Yeah, it can't be long up there. Can't be long up there. We had a couple nice shorts. We had some scalps here, hit some
Yeah, shorts
scalps.
were good too.
This we
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, that one. That
this
one was nasty. That
I
was the easy setup.
yeah, I gave those in voice chat, but unfortunately I think I was the only one short. And then I heard everybody trying to get long. And sometimes when I'm trying to do the opposite of everybody, I just got to get out of voice chat. And so I they were looking for a dip to buy, and I was looking for a bounce to short, and we got that nice little bounce to short.
Yeah, there's like patterns. Like I knew that was gonna happen, but I didn't execute. I just didn't know when.
Yeah. And that was one, today was one where, don't get me wrong, and we're going to talk about it today even. Don't get me wrong, technically speaking, easy enough short. Also, I mean, today was like, we didn't really get news that mattered or anything. And so I don't know. Oh, nice Coinbase. So, I didn't think the market was going to hold that pump this time and happened to work out. I mean, I paper handed the hell out of it, but I got like 115%. Then they ran 700 more percent, but
Is it happens, bro. That's what you were blessed with.
yeah, we hit a monster yesterday though. I got 1700% yesterday. So,
On what? Which ticker?
uh, QQQ. Dumb luck, terrible trade, but
Terrible, but paid.
terrible if it worked.
That's good.
Yeah. But
What's a
we got
what's a
this.
good trade to? Like what's like what trade is good for you? Like for me, I would say like how Trump comes out with news and that. Like I think that's a good buy. I think that's a good trade because you're trading on something that's active.
I think I know because that's like there's too much shooting from the hip when you're trying to take those types of trades. Dude, I think a good trade is just when everything lines up, you don't see much red, it works in your favor quickly. If you can pull that off, you're stoked. This
Yeah.
trade was terrible. I bought the dip on the way down to this trend. Obviously, it crushed under that trend. But I was like 90, I was down, I don't even remember. And dude, they were, I don't know. I want to say 30 buck contracts. I don't even remember at this point. They were down bad, like 50%. Then I actually added a couple, and then they ended up being down about like 80 or 90%. And then we got the rip of a lifetime and they ran 1700%. But not a good trade. It was just like it was 100% luck. Like sometimes you catch something like that, sometimes you catch something like this. But when you're catching those end of day moves, that's just some uh I don't care what anybody says. We can do all the best technical analysis possible. A certain amount of it comes down to luck when you hit those huge ones. Oh yeah, if you're
Yeah.
trading based off news. Well, so it's tough. Like I can't you can't just describe them as ladas. Love that question, whoever asked that. You can't just describe them as ladas. Like when I trade during FOMC, I don't even look at the chart. I just listen to Powell, you know? I just listen to Powell. And you trade off what Powell is saying, but you're making educated decisions based on how you assume the market is going to react based on what he's saying, you know? When you see like, just some random news thing happen and you're like, I'm buying calls, the market's going up. That's a very different, that's just a lotto. You're hoping the news pump continues. But there's times where trading the news, you really are like I said, during Powell, you're trading the news, you're trading what is being said while it's being said. Hopefully you got an up-to-date stream. But that was even, we had one this morning. It was probably this drop right here. Um, Trump was talking, and I was listening to him talking. The market was going up, market was going up, and then all of a sudden he says, "Yeah, the deals will be, written and signed over the next couple of weeks." And so I said it in voice chat today. Instantly, I was like, "Oh my God, he doesn't have a deal. Short this. I don't care how. Like I'd short this. I'm shorting this quick, because." He's saying he doesn't have a deal. So we happen to catch a dumper. These ones paid huge real fast, like, that instant 60%. And so you're reacting to news, but you're reacting to news for a reason, and that's the best we can do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because the market mightn't, maybe the market didn't take it the same way I took it, but this time, thankfully they did. Yeah, he was yapping. And then I took another short. I was looking for just a scalp short somewhere right around here as we pushed up into this trend. Obviously, blown out. Next candle minus 30% on the contract, so stopped up somewhere up here. Got roasted on that one. But technically, it was lined up nice for a little pullback right there. But then I didn't know at the time, but all of a sudden we had, it's a good day to buy stocks. Had I seen like that's an example of like I wanted to be short, but I wasn't aware that the president was going to tweet, it's a good time to buy stocks. Had I known that he was about to say that, or had I seen it, obviously you buy calls. But you're making those decisions based on real, like real news. You can't just I
Yeah.
hope this random news keeps us going.
Like it's scary. Is it so? It's basically like say he said that it pumped, and you bought. Like, is that even really a gamble? Like that's like free money right there. No.
I mean, as much as I hate to say it, like that one, that situation, like I'm sorry if like the president of the United States tweets, it's like it's a good time to buy stocks
Right.
or
It's easy money.
buy a lot of stocks. You buy that one. That's an example of a news that you buy, and maybe you're wrong, but
Yeah.
it's one you try on. You buy the next dip that you're presented, without a doubt. But it can also be the thing like this. Somewhere right around here is when that tweet came out. And or at least like when I saw it or saw I didn't even see it, somebody sent it to me. So right around here was when that tweet came out. Well, you got an epic pump. And if you got in there right away, sick, you were stoked. Call chasers the rest of the day got obliterated. Everybody thought the next pump
Yeah.
where we were going to rip a bunch more. So if you happen to catch that tweet, slap some calls, catch a couple of candles, sick, good on you. But still, the
Yeah.
call chasers by
That
the end of the
base. It
day.
was creating a base.
Yep. hmm Yep. So, it was tough. Yeah. And there was a lot of people looking for the rips, but this price action made it pretty dang clear, pretty dang early that you should be shorting all of these pops up here. And definitely for the, 2/3 of the day, shorting the pops was the real move. That's where the money was being made, after that mayhem. Shorting the
Yeah.
pop was the move. But it could have, and that's the issue with news and why that and why I love that question. Is it always a lotto? You're always walking a fine line, because don't get me wrong, that news could have sent us $10 more if it was the right day and the right time. Just today was one of those days where we got 15 minutes of buying, and then really buying for the rest of the day stopped in a big
Mm.
way.
Yeah, I see like you see how it went up, it got all that demand, that supply, I mean that supply base, and then it ate up that supply when it dropped.
Okay, let me make a post. I sure we're already getting a little behind. 1 second here.
Like look at this chart. This chart is like up, base, down.
Yep. And
I
yeah,
like this. I
classic news
actually like
pump
this.
and news pump based on nothing. News pump
Yeah,
based on nothing. Those ones tend to not hold. That's why you got to be looking to short the pops.
yeah.
Okay, welcome everybody.
Let's go.
Happy to have you here. Dirty River. Tonight we are going to be talking scalping. Obviously, obviously one of my favorite ways to trade. I get a lot of other people, it's not their favorite way to trade. It's generally super quick. One of my favorite things about scalping is that you don't have to sit and manage the position. You are right quickly or you are wrong quickly. And that's what I want. You guys have all heard me say it a million times. Like, I don't want the 100% trade. I don't care about the 100% trade. If you had to sit in the trade and manage your trade, stare at the screen for hours to get that move. When I can get 20% in a candle or 30% in a candle, I like to do that instead. Like, give me 425% trades to 100% trade that takes all day, And so I love it. I get that it's not for everybody. I get that everybody wants to catch the big old runners, people like, the gains tabs folks, they'd much rather post 300% trade and ignore all the other bad trades they took. What I teach all the time is stack up 20% trades, 25% trades all day, every day, and do that over and over and over again. And you are going to find yourself extremely happy and way, way ahead of most other people. We've talked about it a million times that small gains add up, blah, blah, blah. And scalping is really the prime example of that. We are going to touch a little bit about how when scalping, it can oftentimes provide you one of the better entries for what turns into a day trade. It might start as a scalp, but maybe it can turn into a day trade if it's really working in your favor. However, when I scalp, I follow the rules. I follow the plan. I look for the exact same things. I look for the exact same size of move. I look for the exact same amount of time to be in a trade. If I'm wrong, I'm going to admit I'm wrong as quickly as I possibly can. If I'm right, when I'm really scalping, and I get asked this a lot, because people always try to say, "Oh, I'm scalping," but then they've been in a trade for 2 hours. A scalp to me, 2 candles, 3 candles, ideally, you want to be, 5-minute candles. You want to be in at the best point you can and out at your target as quickly as you can. That's the goal of a scalp, or stopped out at your stop out. That is the goal of a scalp, is very, very quick trade. The issue with them, and or one of many issues, as with all trading, there's always downsides to it. The issue with them is, like I said, when you're wrong, you're typically wrong almost instantly. And so if you're a person that struggles with stopping out where you should stop out, clicking that sell button when it's time to click that sell button, in the red, if you struggle with that, you are always going to have a very, very difficult time with scalping. The other tricky side of scalping is, oftentimes when I'm teaching people how to trade and teaching people the types of trades to look for, they're kind of an overlap scalp day trade. You want a bunch of things to line up for you, still wait for your best entry, still do all of that, but you aren't necessarily looking for that instant gratification trade like a scalp is. And you typically have a pretty good risk reward. Well, when you start scalping, your risk reward is, if you're scalping properly, it's never going to be huge. We can find SPY trades, day trades, or slightly longer trades that we might have $1 risk, but we're looking for $2 or $3 upside. We got a nice move upside. A scalp, you might find yourself in a lot of 1-1 risk reward or 1-2 risk reward trades. So what does that mean for us? you need to be right more than you're wrong. To be profitable at scalping, because as I said, you're looking for quick, volatile, smaller moves. You need to be right a lot. So it's definitely not the best beginner method of trading. Where I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can reduce risk while doing it. And that's what I personally do when I scalp all day. But if you're newer to trading, scalping is likely not the thing for you because it's very easy to have it get away from you. You're taking too many trades. And, when you're trading 1-1 risk reward trades, they're consistent size and all of that. If you lose on one, you now have to take another trade to make up for that loss. And then you have to take another trade to make money. So if you start taking too many losses in a row, it's very, very easy for it to get away from you. Also, I have a joke with a few of my friends, ECE, we call it every candle entry. For whatever reason, people think every single candle of the day is offering some sort of entry, or the market sells and we're in voice chat and somebody's like, well, why aren't we in puts? Well, maybe the market didn't tell us to be in puts, and so we aren't in puts, and it happened to sell, and we aren't in there. There's nothing we can do about that. But we don't get entries all day. Not every candle is an entry. And something that when people start trying to actually scalp, they start thinking every single candle is like, oh, well, I can get a little bounce here. I can get a little drop here. And one thing leads to another. They've taken 30 trades that day. Maybe they won on most of them, but they've taken a bunch of losses in there too. And they've made very little money with a whole lot of work. So that's not what we want to do with scalping.
Not good, man.
We don't want to look at every single candle of the day. We don't want to do all of that. We still want to wait for our most opportune entries to arise. And then we want to take those trades. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But when we're scalping, we're looking, I'm right or wrong quick. I make my money quick. Anybody who's traded in voice chat with me knows that, I love scalping. I love quick little moves, like, you know, it's $70 contracts that are paying me $20. I mean, that's my bread and butter. That's my favorite thing to trade. I love as VIX gets lower. I love as volatility dies down. I love range days. I love all of those things because as a person, I enjoy scalping. I enjoy looking at charts. I know that, some people are like, oh, don't sit don't sit in front of your computer all day to, just scalp these little moves. And that's fine if that's your logic. But to me, it's fun. Like I enjoy it. And I love sneaking, as I said in my post, sneaking some little bits of money out of the market here and there all day long. Are these going to be your bread and butter trades? Probably not. They are going to be the trades that every once in a while you find yourself at the best possible entry of an absolute face ripper or dumper, and they're going to be a huge return for you. But 90% of the time, it's going to be 20% trades, 30% trades. For people that, you've all heard me preach, don't trade your profit and loss, trade your positions, understand percentage gain of position size. A bunch of people always miss out on that, but if you're trading 10% of your port, not saying you should, but you're trading 10% of your port and you can get yourself a nice little 20% trade on there, you're stoked. That's a good return on your total portfolio right there from one trade, one small gain. I of course think you should size less than that. I know it's difficult depending on port size, of course, but I think you should likely size less than that. But what I do when I scalp is I just size down a little bit. Your risk can be slightly higher because you're oftentimes entering at points in the market where you expect a quick move. The issue is you're going to do all of your TA, and if your TA is correct, the quick move should come. However, where we're buying scalps and where we're looking for scalps is points where, like I said, we're right or wrong instantly. So your quick move that you're looking for could come. it could just be against you is the issue. But if you're seeing these movements at these points that you're looking for, then it's just a trade that didn't work. And sometimes you have to stop out. Other times, it's a trade that did work, and you get to take your money real quick. But so with that, that's we'll see if we got any questions from that. I just want to talk a little bit about scalping because, just to quick refresh of everything I just said. Definitely more risky, definitely not for beginners, and definitely not for everybody. If you aren't good at stopping out, don't try scalping until you start to have that, the the actual trading site down where like you're red on a trade, you're wrong on a trade, you click sell. That's it. That's all you do. That's what I did today. I mean, like I said, this is, yeah, I love to use me as an example. I shorted this. I looked at VWAP. We're going to get into more of this. Looked at VWAP, looked at all my big charts. To me, this was the no-brainer. My planned stop was really just over this hourly 20 right here. I got exploded on. That's just part of it. Sometimes this is going to happen. So as I held through the candle. It's kind of what you have to do. Held through the candle, especially in the news market. Started to see a little bit of buying on this candle, stopped out. As I recall, that's about how it went. And so to me, it was a great scalp, perfect spot to try a scalp. We weren't looking for a big move. Push back down under this trend. We'll talk about targets on scalps here in just a second. We were looking for a small little move, push back down under this trend. We got our nice volatile move we were looking for in the wrong direction. That's just going to be the way it goes sometimes. So any questions? Nope, we're good. Yeah, I saw that, Lambas or Peanut, 50%. Good, dude. Finally, good. I just want some good for the American people. We'll talk about stop losses here in a second, how I treat them, what I look for when I'm taking the trades. Yeah, Al Brooks would very likely take the short on this trend, in my opinion, and I don't know why you wouldn't. What made me go short end today? Everything in the market told you to be short end today. This was like that bounce that we got. This bounce that we got on SPY. This is just the market like handing us free money to be short. That was such a beauty. Okay, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna talk about what do I look for in scalps. Exactly what I try to identify. Oh, I just realized we were looking at QQQ. I shorted here. This one's even more reasonable. I shorted here. Stops were supposed to be over here, got blown out. Saw buying here, got stopped out. Just to clarify, that was the real trade. So what do I look for in a scalp? What's something that I want to see? What are my targets? What are my stop outs? So as I said, most important part of all of it is we need to be at a point in the market where we think a move is coming. And how do we start to think that a move is coming? It always comes back to what are the charts telling us? We can do, we talked a little bit about a Trump trade over here, based on news and things that he said, that's fine. But that's not most of the time in the market. We need to focus on all of the big names in the market, focus on those ETFs, see what's happening market wide, and then decide to put on a trade. So this is where, we're waiting for very good entries on scalps. And that was why I said oftentimes looking for, when we look at everything and we take this entry where we think we should, it can lead to the best entry possible for the breakout to come. So what do I look for? Well, let's talk about the one that I stopped out on. So we were bouncing back up. We still had talking going on, but we're bouncing into technical stuff, places where I would want to be out of trades. Our opening ranges are set. We got some levels around here. We're happy with all of that. So I start to say, I'm not convinced the market is ready to bounce. So obviously I didn't catch this bounce. Like I said, we got a nice short down, then they ripped it. Well, I'm still looking short the bounce mode. Why? Trend is still down, still below levels. I know my entries, I want them somewhere around this trend VWAP hourly 20. That's all we can do. So now we go to our big names, same as we do in anything else. Doesn't matter the trade we're taking. It doesn't matter any of that. We want the market to tell us what to do. The next trade that we're going to talk after this is a trade that worked. And we'll talk about what happens when you don't watch the market. So we start looking at the market. There is buying. We got Microsoft. It's pushing into VWAP. We got Apple pushing into some EMAs, still not, going green on the day or anything like that. Pushing into some EMAs, hourly 20 still overhead. Amazon, ripper up into hourly 20, ripper up into EMAs, little triple top action. Keep in mind, none of this has happened on the day. Then down here, same situation. NVIDIA bounced, still regret this one, called that 116 like up here and didn't even buy it. NVIDIA, putting in a nice bounce, same thing. Pushing into EMA's hourly 20 VWAP, all of that. So now we know the market is at a point where a move is going to happen. This is already, a bunch of things have already bounced. Of course, a nice move has already happened. We don't want to chase the move. We want to take a trade where the market tells us to take a trade. So now we've seen this happening on all of our big names. I also take note of XLF and XLE, but we aren't going to talk about them here. Then we come to SPY. And where is SPY? At the exact same point. So we now know every single thing in the market is at resistance. We got triple tops going on. We got EMAs. We got VWAPs. We got hourly 20s market wide blocking the road. So we know whole market is at resistance. There is only one answer, in my opinion, and for how I trade. You short this. I short this every single time. And why do I short this? For the reason that we have all of those resistances overhead, EMAs, hourly 20s, VWAPs. We looked at them on all the big names. We even looked left on SPY. We got some more resistance over here. We got some more resistance over here. Trend is down. Everything in the market at resistance, at trend. You don't want to look for the breakout. You want to look for the short. So we put the short on right here and we get absolutely blown out. That's just the way it's going to go. However, when we looked at this, we knew right off the bat, our scalp first target, kind of these previous lows, EMAs, hourly 20, or EMAs, 20 EMA, down to these lows. We were looking for, give or take $1 down. So we're happy there. Ultimate targets are always previous lows. Major supports. So we short down to here to these previous lows. We trim here if this works in our favor. And we know we're looking for a $2 downside move. So we know that on the upside, our planned stop is any strength above here. We're out of this trade stop. It's right up here where we ended up, where we have to admit that we are wrong as scalpers. We admit we're wrong right here. Everything is broken out. We go back to our other names. We start to look at them. Yep, breakouts, 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 breakouts market wide. So we put on the trade that made sense because everything was at resistance. And now we're wrong. We had $2 potential profit. We had $2 potential downside. We stop out of the trade. It turned into a 1-1 risk reward trade. Worst case scenario, 1-1 risk reward trade. But we take the stop out here. Now, and this isn't a trade that I took. This was actually when I quit trading. I went and did other fun stuff for a little bit, Now we can talk about a market that I didn't trade, but what I would have been recommending, and of course we had Trump tweeting. So we had the exact same thoughts for scalps. We want the market to pull back. We've broken out. So we know every single thing, we look at our big charts. Every single thing has now broken out. So now we don't care anymore. We're dip buyers. The market has told us to be dip buyers. So as a scalper, we're looking for a dip to buy. Very likely this dip right here. I wish it wouldn't have worked, or well, whatever, very likely this dip right here. Dip to an opening range after a breakout. Now this is virtually the exact opposite trade. We're entering here, 565.65. We're going to look for some of these previous highs, over here, any of these previous highs. So we're getting, about $1 up and then all the way up to this level. That's our scalp. And where is our stop? The exact opposite of what our stop was before, under EMAs, under VWAP, under hourly 20. So what was our stop when we're looking for the scalp up now or down? Now when we're looking for the scalp move up, now we buy the dip. We have the exact same stop outs. We've been in breakout mode. We've been in all of that. So we got about a buck risk on the, we've got about a buck risk on the downside. So that's what we do as scalpers. Now, maybe you catch this trade, maybe you don't. We see the market push up. Now we start to look for a new trade. Market's obviously ripping. If we're scalpers, we've broken out again. We're going to go to our big names, but when we've broken like this, if I was trading, I'm saying I'm buying a dip to 568.34. That's my big daily level. Then we check our big names and say, okay, if we get any sort of pullback to maybe a pre-market high, maybe a dip to a pre-market high, any sort of pullback again, we're looking at, dips to EMAs. We're looking to buy, might have been here. I should look at time of day, 8:55. Oh yeah, we're looking for dips to buy to levels. We want to see, this one didn't even give a dip. Apple just went for it. Great if we're looking for dips to buy. Microsoft, here's our dip. We're looking for our dip to buy. Here's our dip on NVIDIA. We want all of those to line up and we buy them. And what are we doing on our scalp here? Our planned stop, close below this level. 30 cents, 40 cents risk. If we start selling below pre-market high, stop out of that trade, Where are we targeting? These highs. We want to be in these trades 2-3 candles. That's all we're looking for. We're saying we've broken out. This is a pullback retest. And so we buy, whether you buy, this candle, this candle, this candle, doesn't matter. We're holding support. And where is our target? Right over here. We hold for 1, 2, 3 candles. I'm very likely out right here myself. It's close enough to those highs for me. So if I'm looking for a scalp, this is all we're looking for. If you are looking for a little bit more of a day trade, hold for a little bit. Obviously, you can target the next level up, big 570. You're dumb if you stay long at 570, but nice bounce up, nice little scalp. What's the next trade that we're looking for? Likely a short. We know that as we push into levels, that's where we want to look for those levels to not break. When we break above them, we buy pullbacks. When we push up to them, we short them. So that's again what we do. Maybe we get our nice little scalp here. We get our pullback here. It doesn't even give us another entry for like a double bottom setup or anything. So doing nothing. Oh, son, nice to have you back, son. So we're looking for a push up to short. We know we got a big 570 overhead. So now we go to our major names and we start looking for something like a double top or a push back up, fail below highs, bounce back up. We're looking for shorts. Microsoft pushing up into big 443 level. Can't get past it. So we're looking for shorts. We're looking for double tops here. NVIDIA, obviously, once it took the breakout, it went straight sideways. So we knew that that one wasn't going to be the one that was going to rip the market. So we're looking for pushes into resistance and we get a push into resistance. And we take a short here. Our stop, planned stop, close over 570. Any sort of pushing, strong buying over 570, minimal risk. What's our target? These initial highs first, right off the bat. So you're, 50, 60 cents down. And then ultimately these lows down here. Scalp works pretty quick. I would have been out on this bounce myself, hit the EMA. Maybe that's our target. We get our 1, 2, 3, 4 candles down. That's all we are looking for. If you're looking for more of a day trade, can you hold it a little bit more? Sure, but that's not our scalp plan. Our scalp plan is enter at a point where we say, if we break out, we're going to go. But I expect a rejection. Most breakouts fail. So we look for the rejection. So great trade here if you catch it. Well, maybe you didn't catch it, but we're starting to see some selling. We're giving up previous highs when we go to all of our big names. Now we're really starting to see selling, setting lower highs, setting lower highs, setting lower highs everywhere. And we've even set a little bit of a lower high on SPY. I'm going to look for something like this, a nice little downtrend to form. Maybe you even drew it on this green candle, maybe you draw it on this red candle, but to me, this is a lower high. I'm shorting the next bounce up. This bounce to me, perfectly shortable. What's the stop out? Close over trend or strong buying really over 570, but close over trend in this 569.73, these previous highs. That's always what we use for scalping. Previous highs, previous lows. You take the short. You take these shorts here. It can be a triple top, whatever you want to call it, and tight stops, 40, 50 cents. First scalping target, previous lows, also now becoming EMA, and final target, our big level, 568.34. It was our breakout level. So that's our scalp. We short the trend and we get our move down to the level. This one took 2 candles. Those are like my favorite. When you get the move that quick, those are my favorite. However, this is still a trend. We are now below EMAs. You give me trend retest at EMA, I'm short. Exact same plan for the scalp. Move down to level. If we're lucky and we break, we're targeting that EMA. That's all we're doing, And so this is actually a trade that we did take in voice chat today. I think maybe I took that one alone. But this was a trade that we take for a scalp. 1-2 candles. That's all we want out of it. We aren't looking to go to low a days. Everybody always wants these, low a day to new high a day moves. Not when we're scalping. We want 1, 2, 3 candles. We can even just again, and I'm going to get into this one here in a second. Oop, there we go. We're never only trading the SPY technicals because it will catch up to you. So again, we just have to look at all of our big names, at this point in the day. And I know these charts are small, but you guys will get the point. All of our major names at this point in the day are currently setting lower highs. Lower highs mean that the market is pulling back. You don't know how much the market is going to pull back, but you know that technically speaking, every single one of these has set some sort of a downtrend. So as long as everything's downtrending, we're shorting bounces to the trend. Something that I always teach, we have to use market statistics as best we can. 80% of breakouts fail. So what does that mean for us? If we've had 4 tests on a trend, I'm probably not going to short it. Here's kind of our, first, second test, third test. This is the 4th test. I start to get a little bit worried about that. That's typically not what I want to be. That's typically not where I want to be looking to short it. If I can catch one of, the second or third test, I'm happy. 4th, I'm starting to not like it. 5th test, I'm not taking it. So we see a market selling. Maybe we caught some scalps. Maybe you caught this one. Maybe you caught this one. And I'm going to put circles around the ones that we discussed. Maybe you caught that one. Maybe you caught that one. Maybe you took this one and you got the tight stop out, or you made a couple bucks on the pullback. For me, now I start watching the rest of the market. We're kind of pulling into the trend. It's been a strong buying day. So when, you gotta love that one. I mean, that one happened to me today even. So we've broken trend. We're still below EMAs. We've had a strong buying of a day. Well, this one's starting to, we're starting to see some buying over this one's trend. We're starting to see some buying over this one's trend. We're starting to see some buying over this one's trend. Same as even NVIDIA. I mean, still sideways, but we're starting to see some buying over the trend. We can be dip buyers right here for our scalp, or this one, any one of these candles really right here. We're breaking the trend. We're retesting the trend. Our stop is very defined for us. If we start selling under these like lows down here, we got what? 50 cents of risk. And what are we looking for? Moves to previous highs. They aren't always going to come in one candle, but we're entering, break and retest, things that oftentimes provide volatility. We're looking for our, maybe we enter this one on the pullback. We get our 1, 2, 3 candles. We're out. We also pushed into previous resistance, blah, blah, blah. This is, we took this trade today. Quick little scalp. Now we again go to all of our big names. We've bounced up. We're at this previous resistance all from earlier. We felt comfortable shorting here because of this previous resistance. So now we have to start to look left and say, do I want to be long here? Because I don't. I know that if I short here, maybe we push up to here and it goes 30 cents, 40 cents against me. Absolute worst case scenario, it rips over 570. So about $1 above me. But I view this as, well, I can short here and maybe I target this level, and that's it's giving me a buck down. And then I target my EMA and, our previous low. I'm out. So this is another one we took in voice chat today. Not only did we scalp these ones down, get out of them here, this candle bought back up. I looked left, previous resistance, previous resistance. We reshorted right here and then got some of those puts financed. Ultimately, I stopped out of my runner. And then, and I, in voice chat, I was saying, I'm shorting this bounce. And then around here, people wanted to be long. I was bummed I didn't buy the double bottom here. And then as soon as we start pushing up, I start looking left. Big resistance, big resistance, big resistance, big resistance. Then I go to all of my big names, pushing up. This is basically a double top. This is a double or a triple top. This is like a quadruple top, wasn't even able to push to highs. Nvidia was the only one that pushed up and then printed this ugly wick candle, not really able to sustain much above those highs. So very obviously, I'm short right here. And then I'm short for a scalp. What am I targeting? Previous lows right down here. So fortunately, unfortunately, I was out of the trade here. Anybody that was trading SPY was looking at this as a breakout retest, a little bit of consolidation for a push higher. Then you look at all your big names and you look left on all of your big names, and there is not one of these that tells you you should be getting long here. And every single one of them tells you you should be getting short here. So this one I like to talk about because obviously you guys know me. I follow my plan. If we hit my target, I sell. Always, no questions asked. That's what I'm going to do. But this is the really nice example. This one was too, but this is a tweet, so we aren't talking about that. This is a really nice example of the scalp giving us the best possible entry for the short trade because, or any trade, this one just so happens to be a short. We're short here. We know where our stops are, buck overhead or whatever we're looking, and it's kind of one-to-one risk reward. Not denying that. These are scalps, lots of one-to-one risk rewards. Looking for maybe a buck down. Well, ultimate target is here. We get out. Well, they keep selling. So what this does for us is when the breakout comes, and again, I didn't catch this. I just want to reemphasize, I'm not pretending I caught this. I'm sad that I didn't hold, of course, but no big deal. When the breakdown comes, now people start chasing. Maybe it works for them, maybe it doesn't work for them, but by the time people are chasing because we're breaking down, and I'm sure this is a nice candle. You make money on that candle no matter what. But the chasers are now going to potentially push it lower for you. You're in $2 above them, and now they're getting into the same trade that you're in, and so, and you can set your stop. I sold here. I think I got about 70 or maybe 100%. This was a nice one. I'm paid good. So this one, we sell here, you can set your stop 50% in profit while the chasers are sweating it and hoping that it continues selling. And, fortunately for them today, it did. You're just printing. You're up huge. Your stops are up here. You have no reason to exit this trade. Again, you always go to your big names, clobbering, 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 clobbering. You stick with the trade. I mean, I didn't because I was in it for the scalp and I know we're 15 minutes to close. But those are what I look for day in and day out when I trade. Even ignore this whole move right here. You take your entry here, you take your stop out here, you catch your bounce to these highs, you catch a short down to this level, you catch a reshort down to this level, you catch a nice little breakout to previous highs, maybe, and probably short it back down to this level. You made more money than the people who held through this. I 100% guarantee you. And you didn't have to sweat. You didn't have to say, is the market going to keep going? And my favorite thing about, scalping and trading like this and, in voice chat, I think one time ever I've had somebody ask me, are you still in that trade? And yeah, I'm still in the trade. The thing about scalping is you're in for a short amount of time, ideally. And so, we're right or wrong right away. You don't have to be the one sweating the market. You don't have to be the one on trade floor or in voice chat saying to me, do you think SPY can go back to high a day? Like, when you ask that kind of question, I know you're in calls and I know you're likely red on calls and you're hoping that it goes back to high a day. If you scalp, whether you're wrong or you're right, it happens instantly. And that is the most important thing about scalping. It helps you control your emotions, you know, like maybe you bought this breakout and then you start sweating and you're pulling back and you're pulling back, you know, and you're like, oh God, do I stay in it? Do I stay in it? And then you get a bounce and it saves you. Well, if you were a scalper, you never would have bought this because the scalper buys a pullback. They would never buy the high of a candle, you know, they buy the pullback. And so you are instantly in a better spot than the person who chased. You know, scalping is always going to give you the I'm right or wrong instantly. The chaser has to be like, oh no, 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 no. And then they're like, oh, I'm green, I'm green, I'm green. This thing's going to fly. And then, oh no, no, no. And then finally they get a nice little payday. You know, if they buy here and they sell here, your move from here to here probably pays you more money. And so this is what I do day in and day out. Anytime anybody asks me about a trade, I look at SPY, I look at every one of these big names. As I said, I also watch XLF and XLE. The reason that I watch, you know, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Nvidia, XLF, XLE, you got like 40% of SPY. I'm making that number up. Feel free to, you know, check me on that. But you got a big chunk of SPY displayed in front of you in 6 charts. So as we know, SPY does not have a mind of its own. SPY moves based on what these other names do. So what these other names tell us, you know, like that end of day trade, we can't even set new highs over here. We can't even set new highs here. We're like double, triple topping. This one is setting lower highs. In fact, Nvidia is the one kind of weird one, but the second you see a candle like that print, when everything else is looking weak, you want to be short in SPY. And you know that not by SPY. I mean, SPY's given a perfectly reasonable enough short entry right here, much safer short entry than a call entry, you know, because you have to think when we're, you know, shorting up here, and as we said, you know, our stops are about 50, 60 cents overhead. If you're buying calls here, I mean, where's your stop? Like, because if you start stopping out down here, you're kind of stopping out at the bottom of the range where you would want to be like looking to buy calls, not, you know, not stop out of your calls. So you instantly have more risk and not a ton of reward, you know, just over $1 a reward to the upside and over $1 a reward or risk to the downside. I mean, got $1.70 risk for $1 reward that you can't do. No, I don't use great though. I don't use the volume profile. A lot of people do. People love the volume profile, and it's one indicator that I actually I support. Okay, so with that, we got like 15 minutes left. You guys know I always like to leave questions. You know, I try to always leave at least 10 minutes for questions. You know, 5, 10 minutes for questions. Do you want to look at another chart, or do you have questions about something I said? You know, maybe places on the chart. Why would you take an entry? Why wouldn't you take an entry? Anything like that. And if you guys don't have more questions, then we will just kind of do the same thing we did, quicker speed, but with QQQ. Because everything I said is applicable, just as applicable to QQQ as it is to SPY. So I want to leave it up to all of you. What do you want to do? Always be winning. Now do you see why I went short end today? Can't believe I got sun back. What do I look for? No, no, and I'll answer your question on XLF and XLE here in just a second. I mostly scalp SPY. I don't love trading QQQ because to me they don't move as good. Like SPY contracts are so much more fluid. QQQs are much choppier, kind of tougher to get a fill on. So I mostly watch those, but I trade all kinds of things. I mean, I trade your IWMs. I like to trade those as well. But for scalping, the liquidity of SPY is very, very hard to beat. So a person asked me, what do I look for on XLF, XLE? Exact same things. It's always important to remember that tech is always going to be the thing that's like, I can't say always, but like 90% of the time, the tech names are really ruling both SPY and obviously QQQ. So I use XLF and XLE the exact same way. So this was another thing, this is where I ended up getting stopped out on that trade. I had XLF set in a triple top too. Everything in the market was telling me to do it, but I do the exact same things. I say, is it setting lower highs or what are these names doing? Obviously XLF you can see was much weaker into end of day. Additional reason to be short in SPY, but I do the exact same things, chart them all the same, trade those big major daily levels, and just use them as additional forms of confirmation. XLE, that big 82 level, 8250 level, obviously unable to sustain above it, lower highs. I guess this one's technically not, but lower highs forming, still lower highs forming. A lot of bearishness going into end of day. So you just use these charts as additional forms of confirmation. That is something that I should have mentioned in the very beginning when I'm looking for scalp trades. The number one thing that I care about, and this is scalps, days, swings, I don't care the type of trade, honestly. The most important thing you can possibly do is try to have as many things in your favor as you can. If I'm not having 4 or 5 of my 6, 8 charts I'm watching confirm what I'm trying to do, I'm not going to take the trade. And even with doing that, that's why I was happy I had to stop out today, or as happy as you can be, to show you, even when everything tells you to do something, sometimes it doesn't work. That is just unfortunately part of it. But just use these XLFs and XLEs just like you're using those big names as well. And if you don't know, XLE is the energy sector SPY, XLF's the financial sector SPY. So obviously those oil names, which can be pretty volatile, and then a lot of the banking names, much less volatile, but a chunk of SPY, so worth watching. Biggest issue with you is you have stop loss. So
Those contracts move.
no, on XLF and XLE, they're kind of a pain. They're great. You can trade them. Really low liquidity. Not really low,
Yeah,
but pretty low liquidity. So, no market ordering into those things.
yeah.
But yeah, XLF and XLE, I like
High
XLF.
delta.
I like XLF more than XLE, but you can get a massive amount of delta on them for cheap. So let's see. So yep, there's the number one issue with scalping. And well, I guess coupled, you either don't stop out or all of a sudden you get greedy. And that's the double-edged sword of scalps. Sometimes you make 30% in a candle, like the right candle will pay you huge. And all of a sudden you're like, well, that happened in 2 minutes. I bet I can get 50% out of that thing. You need to have the rules and you need to be targeting those intraday highs, lows, EMAs, VWAPs, levels, whatever it is. And no matter what, you sell most of your position there.
Yeah.
If you only have one contract, sell it. Your scalp is accomplished. Everybody in trading, they want the big gains. They want to hold for this. They want to hold for that. We have one job as a trader to take a certain amount of money and turn it into more money. When your plan works, you sell. You'll notice with scalps, they're close targets. You're looking for those volatile move to an EMA or a level or whatever it is. And you might be short and then 15 minutes later you're long, but you just want your move to happen quickly and you got to get rid of greed. When you're scalping, maybe you buy this pullback, this is your target, you sell. It bounces above it and you're like, oh no, and then it pulls back and you're like, oh no, and then finally it rips and you're like, oh well shit, but it doesn't matter. You buy this pullback, this is your target, sell most of your position. If you got 5 of them, sell 4 of them. Chances are that last one's free. If you want to let it work a little bit more, you have to think, if you got 5 contracts, you sell 4 for 20-25%, you have 80 to 100% of the value of the last contract financed. So you can let them work a little bit more, or you just take your money. That's the thing,
Yeah.
taking your money is the most important thing you can do. Because when you start looking for more and, oh, I want more and blah, 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 that's when you start losing. And everybody they always say, like, oh, if this thing hits, I'll make like $500. Well, if it doesn't hit, you lose 300. And no, nobody ever thinks of the loss side. You have to think, when you see a trade up 30%, you're happy. If you aren't up 30%, or if you aren't happy when you're up 30%, then you have greed issues like that. That's for sure. Deal with those, but you're happy. So when that goes away, you're super sad. So you have to get in this habit of like, oh, dude, 30%, or like, the spy puts, like, oh, some cheap spy put just paid me 70% in a 5 minute candle, or a cheap spy call paid me 70% in a 5 minute candle. You have to be happy with that, and you have to take it. I mean, S&P's on average putting up 10% a year, and you just did 70% in 5 minutes. Like, you take it. And that is one of the very hard things with scalping, of course, and why it's not for beginners. If you got trouble stopping out, or you got trouble with greed, you're going to lose money scalping. I promise you, you will lose money scalping,
Yeah.
because if
River,
you
I
follow
remember.
the rules, you're done for.
River, I remember you mentioned like when a candle goes up very very fast on that volatility, like you should just sell it because you're never gonna get that price again.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know.
Oh yeah. And like that's super common. Like this contract on this ripper right here, you probably aren't getting that price until you're up here with the
Yeah.
push up and the pull back and some more pull
Facts.
back and a push up, set, and that's known, that's not something that I made up or anything like that. Selling into strength. That's a big part of options working how they do. Is IV increases help you. IV decreases can hurt you a little bit, not a ton, but when you get rapid IV increase because you catch a volatile candle, your contract's worth a bunch more than it's going to be. Like even this one, say you buy the break of VWAP or whatever, and so you get this push up and then you have 10 minutes of pullback. Your contract right here is probably worth what it is up here at the triple top, because you sat there for 15 minutes, you lost a little bit, and that's part of scalping. We want that volatility. We want the most money we can as quickly as we possibly can, and we aren't in it for a long time. We're in it for a good time. Yeah, so and stops into profit, always great. My rule when I enter a trade, I always have two stop losses. I got my planned stop loss, and then I got my like, oh shit, stop loss. Like I am so wrong. I have to exit this trade right now. I'm getting obliterated, no questions asked. For me, that's a hard one on the chart. Like that's always a hard stop. It doesn't move. Now, my other rule on stop losses is if I trim, the stop loss moves. So let's say I buy this break of VWAP. My oh shit stop is way down here. My plan stop is just to close back under VWAP, small risk. When this bounces up here and I trim, I 100% guarantee you I'm trimming a candle like this. I mean, I guess it's XLE, so it's like 30 cents, but I'm likely trimming a candle like this. At that point, my stop's above entry. Like that, I'm not letting that trade go green. If I was happy enough with some of the profits to trim, that stop goes up. Then again, if I get another ripper, my stop now moves to my trim spot. Because if I move it to my trim spot, I knew that I was happy with the profits there. So even if I get stopped out, I was happy enough to click sell once. So if I get stopped out there, I'm still happy. And so that's how I treat stops. And then I always base them, on the chart sort of deal. Like if I catch this ripper, trim, stops above entry, I get this pullback, and then I get another ripper. My stops are going to the low of this pullback, likely. That's how I would trade it. I always try to let the chart dictate where I go. But if I trim here, stop goes to here. If I trim here, stop goes to here. Always.
Nice, man.
Uh yes and no. Not when you're scalping. If you're letting it breathe, you aren't scalping. That's the tricky thing.
Correct.
You do want to let some trades breathe. And if you're, trading, one DTE spy contracts, you're kind of trying to, you're looking for a reversal on the day. QQQ actually offered a beautiful one today, so we can talk about it. I didn't catch this trade or anything, and there was news going on. You guys know I love a 3-push wedge. It's 80% chance of a scalp working and 70% chance of a reversal coming off of either a tight bear wet or tight bull channel down to a 3-push wedge. Maybe you're looking for the reversal here and you're trading some, 1 DTE contracts or something like that. And you're looking for a move, you're looking for a level, you're looking for another level. Obviously, it's not always going to rip like this. But yeah, you aren't going to stop out just, on a pullback like this. But that needs to be your plan. However, in a scalp, you go from point A to point B and you don't care, when you enter a scalp, one of two things happens. You stop out or you take profit. Where you say you're going to stop out and where you say you're going to take profit. I completely agree. Day trades, you got to let them breathe. Swing trades, obviously, they're out of your hands for, obviously a swing trade, they're out of your hands for whatever it is, 18 hours a day, but when you're scalping, point A to point B as quickly as you can, you're right or wrong as quick as you can, for sure. Because, for part of that reason of you don't want to short this and make a bunch of money and let it breathe back up to here. You want to take your money, and if you liked it short here once, you better like it short there twice. Otherwise, your first plan wasn't that good. So, you can let this drop, take a little trim, let it bounce back up and catch this move down, or you can sell this down, take your money at your perceived target. When it starts bouncing, stop out. When you get the new short entry, take your reshort. Now you got profits to play with. So even if you stop out, you aren't losing money overall. And next short pays you good. And the person who let it breathe made less money than you. So when you're scalping, it is all about right, wrong, quickly.
Execution.
I'm of course only talking about scalping right now. Of course only talking about scalping. But holding those 0 DTEs all day long, letting them breathe, generally speaking, not the move. Because sometimes you let them breathe right into chop and your contract just gets wrecked for an hour, Okay. Any more questions? Any more concerns? Awesome questions so far. Oh yeah, Scotty, I saw it. Yeah, trade XLE. It's great. I mean, it's great. Much slower moving, much safer.
Yeah.
Not necessarily scalping it, but it's a fun one. Okay, well, everybody, if you
River, I love you, man.
I appreciate it, dude. Thank you. I love that you're always here, dude. Thanks for always pulling up. Yeah, and Scotty, you ain't a beginner. Don't play yourself down. We know better. Yep, man and son. Thanks for being here, child. Yeah, good to have you. Good to see you back around. It's been too long. There you go, Scotty. Sometimes in trading, that's what it feels like for all of us, man. It's one of those only jobs where, man, you think you do everything right and everything is so good. And then all of a sudden you are just so wrong, but man, that's trading. That's what keeps it fun, I talk about it. I've done this for quite a while, and I show up and learn something new every day, like, oh, or I see something, I'm like, oh, I've seen this trick before, but that's the great thing about the market. We're all just students every single day learning, thinking we know what those, $100 million algos are going to do. Okay, well, if that's going to do it, thank you everybody so much for coming. I really appreciate it. You guys are always here, always great attendance to my lectures, and I really appreciate that. And as always, if you got any questions, always shoot me a DM or whatever, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, man.
Catch you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Good.
Yep, thanks everyone. We'll catch you soon.